I wanted to ask the question, are you more positive or less positive about human nature after the experience of the coronavirus? I remember travelling in the west of Ireland a number of years ago and being quite taken aback by the way strangers and passers-by would greet me everywhere I went. There would always be a hello, a good morning, how are you doing? It was quite disarming, really. And of course, I've been observing that over the last few months in England, strangers and neighbours having more time for one another just to be friendly. In the first week of the lockdown, apparently 500,000 people signed up to be volunteers for the NHS. Who would have thought that even as recently as a year ago, we would be building such a big state again, with a raft of traditionally socialist policies announced by the government, from furloughing to grants to help small businesses. Can we dare to be more hopeful about human nature? I saw an interview at the Hay Online Literary Festival with Rutger Bregman, a Dutch writer, who has written a book called HumanKind. He calls it a hopeful history, a tribute to our better nature. He claims cynicism is out and hope is in. He is suggesting a new politics of collaboration is emerging. He shared the example of a major healthcare company in the Netherlands with no chief executive and no board, a company in which workers decide their schedule, training, and who to hire. He said the results are amazing, with a better product and much more efficiency than the more usual hierarchy of leadership. What do the shocking events across the United States say about humankind? Simply that power corrupts and humans in authority will always mistreat humans who are opposed, who are oppressed, or that humans will rise up and seek justice even while risking their safety. Meanwhile, NASA and SpaceX send 2 astronauts into space, a brilliant technological achievement and a demonstration of incredible teamwork, yet in the context of much poverty and inequality in such a rich nation. In the book, he talks about reading William Golding's Lord of the Flies when he was a teenager. He said he was disillusioned by Golding's bleak story, imagining what would happen if a group of schoolboys were stranded on a desert island with no grown-ups. They start forming rules with the use of a conch, and then they slowly slip into mayhem, disorder, and violence. 2 opposing ideologies emerge: the group who see the urgency to keep a fire going to send a signal to passing ships, and the tribe who just want to hunt. By the end of the story, 3 boys are dead, and one of the central characters, Ralph, bursts into tears and weeps for the end of innocence and for the darkness at the heart of mankind. Golding wrote the book in 1951 and was possibly influenced by the rise of the Nazis in the Second World War. Bregman, the Dutch philosopher, was never very convinced by Golding's pessimistic view of human nature. You can imagine how delighted he was when he found a real-life Lord of the Flies. In 1966, a group of 6 schoolboys decided to escape from a boarding school in Tonga, and who can blame them, in a boat, and they were caught up in a storm and marooned on the minuscule island of Atta and stranded for 15 months. By the time they were rescued, the boys had set up a small commune with a food garden, hollowed out tree trunks to store rainwater, a gymnasium with curious weights, a badminton court, chicken pens, and a permanent fire, all from handiwork, an old knife blade, and much determination. The kids agreed to work in teams of 2, drawing up a strict roster for garden, kitchen, and guard duty. Sometimes they quarrelled, But whenever that happened, they solved it by imposing time out. Their days began and ended with song and prayer. One day, one of the boys, Stephen, slipped and fell off a cliff and broke his leg. The other boys picked their way down after him and helped him up to the top. They set his leg using sticks and leaves and looked after him until he was better. In the book, Bregman concludes, "It's time we told a different kind of story. The real Lord of the Flies is a tale of friendship and loyalty, one that illustrates how much stronger we are if we can lean on each other, including the lesson that you should always look for what is good and positive in people." Bregman suggests that deep down we are friendly, peaceful, and healthy. I'd like to finish with a poem. This is written by Sheena Pugh, and she refers to men in the poem, but of course I think she is referring to all humanity. Sometimes, by Sheena Pugh. Sometimes things don't go, after all, from bad to worse. Some years, muscadel faces down frost. Green thrives, the crops don't fail. Sometimes a man aims high and all goes well. A people sometimes will step back from war, elect an honest man, decide they care enough that they can't leave some stranger poor. Some men become what they were born for. Sometimes our best efforts do not go amiss. Sometimes we do as we meant to. The sun will sometimes melt a field of sorrow that seemed hard frozen. May it happen for you. Amen, and thanks for listening.